The rain hammered down on the abandoned railway platform like bullets from heaven, each drop exploding against the rusted metal and cracked concrete. Through the downpour, Marcus Chen squinted at his datapad, checking the cargo manifest one more time. The supply run to the outer colonies was routine, but the weather made everything 10 times harder. As his transport rumbled along the elevated maglev tracks that stretched across the desolate landscape of Kepler 442b, something caught his eye. A dark shape huddled between the rails ahead, motionless against the silver metal. Marcus hit the emergency brake, the magnetic clamps screeching as they fought against momentum. "Control, this is Transport 77 Alpha." He spoke into his comm unit. "I've got an obstruction on Track 9, coordinates Delta 47. Requesting clearance to investigate." Static crackled back. 77 Alpha, you're clear for investigation. Exercise caution. That sector's been abandoned for 3 cycles. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and stepped out into the storm. The shape became clearer as he approached. Definitely humanoid, but wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin, with limbs that bent at impossible angles. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't human at all. The creature was female. That much was obvious despite her alien features. Her skin was a pale blue-gray like moonlight on water, and covered in intricate patterns that might have been tattoos or natural markings. She wore what remained of some kind of metallic fabric that had been torn and stained with dark fluid. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Most striking were her eyes, large silver orbs that held a depth of intelligence and pain that made Marcus's chest tighten. Those eyes tracked his movement as he knelt beside her, but she made no effort to flee or defend herself. She had given up. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, the way he might speak to a wounded animal. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien woman's lips moved, forming sounds that his universal translator struggled to process. The device in his ear buzzed and whirred before finally producing halting words. "Leave me to die. It is ordained." "Not happening," Marcus replied firmly. He pulled out his medical scanner, a standard-issue device that could analyze most known biological systems. The readings made his blood run cold. Multiple fractures, severe dehydration, signs of prolonged exposure, and something else. Some kind of neural implant that was failing. Ordained by who? He asked as he worked, pulling a thermal blanket from his kit and wrapping it around her trembling form. "The collective has spoken." Each word seemed to cost her tremendous effort. "I am flawed, broken, to be discarded." Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. He'd heard rumors about the Zephyrian Collective, a species that had made first contact with humanity about 5 years ago. They were advanced, organized, and apparently had some pretty twisted ideas about what to do with their own people. "Well, the collective can go to hell," he muttered, then louder. "What's your name?" The alien woman's eyes widened slightly as if the question surprised her. "Name? Was. Designation Kira 779. That's not a name, that's a number. I'm Marcus. What do you want to be called?" For a long moment she stared at him through the rain. "I do not understand. If you could choose any name, any sound that represents who you are, what would it be?" Something shifted in those silver eyes. A spark of something that might have been hope. "Kira," she whispered. "Just Kira. Kira it is." Marcus smiled, and he was rewarded with the faintest upturn of her lips. "Now, Kira, I'm going to get you out of this rain and somewhere safe. Is that okay?" She nodded weakly. Marcus activated his comm unit. "Control, this is 77 Alpha. I need emergency medical clearance for New Geneva Station. I've got a survivor who needs immediate attention. Copy that, 77 Alpha. Medical teams are standing by. What's the nature of the emergency?" Marcus looked down at Kira, whose eyes had started to flutter closed. "Abandonment," he said simply. Getting her to his transport was easier than expected. She weighed less than she should have, her bones hollow like a bird's. Marcus suspected it was an adaptation for a world with heavier gravity than this one. He settled her in the passenger compartment, cranking up the heat and monitoring her vital signs on his scanner. As they traveled toward the station, Kira drifted in and out of consciousness. During her lucid moments, she watched Marcus with a mixture of confusion and wonder, as if she couldn't quite believe someone was helping her without expectation of reward. Why? She asked at one point, her voice stronger now that she was warm and dry. Why what? Why save me? You gain nothing. I am defective. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. On my world, we have a saying, the measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. Sounds like your collective failed that test pretty badly. But I'm not. Of your society. You are now, Marcus said. And he meant it. New Geneva Station appeared through the storm clouds like a beacon, its lights cutting through the darkness. Medical teams were already waiting on the platform, their equipment ready. As Marcus carried Kira from the transport, she gripped his arm with surprising strength. They will come for me, she whispered urgently. The collective does not tolerate defiance. Let them come, Marcus replied. They'll find out what human stubbornness looks like. As the medical team took over, rushing Kira toward the emergency medical bay, Marcus stood in the rain watching them go. He didn't know what he'd gotten himself into, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't about to let anyone else abandon this woman to die. Not on his watch. The storm raged on, but something had changed in the darkness between the stars. A human had chosen compassion over convenience, and that choice would ripple outward in ways none of them could yet imagine. The medical bay of New Geneva Station hummed with activity as Dr. Sarah Reeves worked over her unusual patient. Kira lay unconscious on the biobed, her pale blue skin almost glowing under the medical scanners that mapped every inch of her alien physiology. I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Reeves murmured to Marcus, who had refused to leave the medical bay despite the staff's protests. Her bone density is about 60% of human normal, but her muscle fibers are incredibly efficient. She's built for a high-gravity world, which explains why she seems so fragile here. Marcus nodded, watching the vital signs display with concern. What about her injuries? 3 broken ribs, a fractured left arm, severe malnutrition and dehydration. But Marcus, the doctor paused, her expression troubled. There's something else. This neural implant in her brain, it's not medical. It's designed to suppress certain brain functions. What kind of functions? Creative thinking, emotional response, individual decision-making. Essentially, it's turning her into a biological machine. Dr. Reeves pulled up a 3-dimensional image of Kira's brain, highlighting the foreign device that wrapped around her neural pathways like a metallic spider. The scary part is it's failing. That's probably why her people abandoned her. Marcus felt sick. Can you remove it? I don't know. The integration is unlike anything in our medical databases. One wrong move and we could kill her. Dr. Reeves touched a control, and the brain scan zoomed in on a particularly complex section. But if we don't do something, the device will continue to deteriorate. She'll either die or suffer permanent brain damage. A soft moan drew their attention back to the biobed. Kira's silver eyes fluttered open, immediately focusing on Marcus with laser intensity. She tried to sit up, but Dr. Reeves gently pressed her back down. Easy there, the doctor said. You're safe, but you need to rest. Kira's gaze darted around the medical bay, taking in the unfamiliar technology with obvious intelligence despite her weakened state. When she spoke, her words were clearer now, the universal translator having had time to analyze her speech patterns. Where am I? New Geneva Station, Marcus answered, pulling a chair closer to her bed. You're in the medical bay. Dr. Reeves has been taking care of you. I should not be here. Kira's voice carried an undertone of panic. The collective's judgment was final. I must return to the disposal site. The hell you will, Marcus said firmly. Nobody's disposing of anybody on my watch. Kira stared at him, her expression cycling through confusion, fear, and something that might have been hope. I do not understand your motivation, Marcus Human. Your actions serve no logical purpose. Maybe that's the point, Marcus replied. Tell me about this collective of yours. Why did they abandon you? Kira was quiet for a long moment, her fingers unconsciously tracing the patterns on her skin. The collective operates on principles of maximum efficiency. Each individual is evaluated at regular intervals for their contribution to the whole. She paused, struggling with the words. I began experiencing irregularities. What kind of irregularities? Questions, Kira whispered as if the word itself was dangerous. I began to question orders, to wonder about alternatives, to feel emotions that served no productive purpose. She looked directly at Marcus. I began to dream. Dr. Reeves exchanged a look with Marcus. Dreams aren't irregularities, Kira. They're signs of a healthy, creative mind. Not in the collective, Kira replied. We are designed for function, not individuality. When my neural compliance implant began to malfunction, I started experiencing thoughts and feelings that were inefficient. Art, music, beauty, love. She spoke each word like a confession. These things have no place in a perfect society. Marcus felt his anger building again. Sounds like a pretty crappy definition of perfect to me. You do not understand, Kira insisted. The collective has eliminated war, poverty, conflict. Everyone has a purpose, a role to fulfill. There is order. And what was your role? Kira hesitated. I was a creator. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. What did you create? Art, Kira said quietly. Music, visual displays, narrative structures. But only as assigned. Only to serve the collective's purposes. Propaganda, essentially. When my implant began failing, I started creating other things. Personal expressions, beauty for its own sake. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. I wrote a song about the stars. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Marcus reached out and gently took her hand, surprised by its warmth and the delicate strength in her fingers. That song, he said. Would you sing it for us? Kira's eyes widened in shock. Sing it, but it serves no purpose. It has no function. The best things in life usually don't, Marcus smiled. Humor me. For a moment, Kira looked as though she might refuse. Then, so softly it was barely audible, she began to sing. The melody was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard, haunting and beautiful, with harmonies that seemed to resonate in his bones. The words, translated by his universal device, spoke of distant lights calling to wandering souls, of journeys without destinations, of the joy found in simply existing among the cosmos. When she finished, Dr. Reeves was wiping tears from her eyes. That was beautiful, Kira. Absolutely beautiful. It serves no function, Kira repeated, but there was less conviction in her voice now. It serves the most important function of all, Marcus said. It shows us who you really are underneath all that collective programming. Kira's hand tightened in his. But I am broken, defective. My people were right to abandon me. Your people were wrong, Dr. Reeves said firmly. What they call defective, we call human. Well, you know what I mean. The capacity for individual thought, for creativity, for questioning authority, these aren't flaws, Marcus added. They're what make life worth living. Kira studied their faces, searching for deception and finding none. But what am I to do now? The collective will not accept me back, even if I wish to return. I have no place, no purpose. You'll find your place, Marcus assured her. And Kira? Your purpose isn't something someone else assigns to you. It's something you choose for yourself. The concept seemed to overwhelm her. She closed her eyes, exhaustion creeping back in. I do not know how to choose. I have never been permitted to choose. Then we'll teach you, Dr. Reeves said gently. But first we need to deal with that implant. Kira, would you consent to surgery? It's risky, but leaving it in place is more dangerous. Kira opened her eyes, looking first at Dr. Reeves, then at Marcus. If I survive the surgery, will I still be me, or will I become something else entirely? You'll be you, Marcus said with conviction. Just free to be all of yourself instead of the limited version the collective wanted. Kira nodded slowly. Then yes, I consent to the surgery. As Dr. Reeves began preparing for the procedure, Marcus squeezed Kira's hand one more time. You're going to be okay, I promise. How can you be certain? Marcus smiled. Because humans are really, really good at keeping promises, especially the important ones. The surgery took 14 hours. Marcus paced the waiting area like a caged animal, unable to concentrate on anything except the closed doors of the operating theater. Station personnel came and went, offering coffee, updates that weren't really updates, and well-meaning but useless reassurances. He declined them all. Dr. Reeves had assembled a team of the station's best surgeons and neurological specialists, but they were still operating in uncharted territory. The Zephyrian neural implant was more sophisticated than anything in human medical databases, its integration with Kira's brain tissue so complete that distinguishing between organic and artificial had required microscopic precision. When the doors finally opened, Dr. Reeves emerged looking exhausted but triumphant. "She's stable," she announced before Marcus could ask. "The implant is out and her brain activity is remarkable." "What do you mean, remarkable?" "See for yourself." Dr. Reeves led him to the recovery room where Kira lay unconscious, her head wrapped in biomedical bandages. "Look at these neural scans." The displays showed Kira's brain in real time, pulsing with activity that seemed to dance across the screen in patterns Marcus couldn't interpret, but found beautiful nonetheless. Before the surgery, maybe 20% of her brain showed active engagement, Dr. Reeves explained. The implant was suppressing entire regions responsible for creativity, emotional processing, and individual reasoning. Now, she gestured at the displays. "She's lighting up like a Christmas tree. It's as if her mind is waking up for the first time. Is that good or bad? Honestly, I don't know. We're in completely uncharted territory. But her vital signs are strong and there's no indication of neural trauma from the removal process." Marcus settled into the chair beside Kira's bed, prepared for another long wait. He'd taken indefinite leave from his transport duties, claiming personal emergency. His supervisor had grumbled but approved it. Marcus had enough accumulated time off to cover several months if necessary. 2 days later, Kira began to stir. Her eyes opened slowly, blinking against the soft light of the recovery room. When her gaze found Marcus, who was dozing in his chair, something extraordinary happened. Her face, which had been marked by resignation and pain since he'd found her, suddenly transformed with an expression of pure wonder. "The colors," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Marcus snapped awake. "Kira, how are you feeling?" "Everything is—" She struggled to find words, her eyes darting around the room as if seeing it for the first time. "Everything is so much more than it was. The lights, the sounds, the way the air feels on my skin. Is this how you always experience the world?" "Pretty much," Marcus smiled. "Though I think you might be experiencing it more intensely than most people do." Kira sat up slowly, her movements more fluid and natural than before. "I remember the surgery. I remember agreeing to it, but I do not remember feeling so alive." Dr. Reeves chose that moment to enter, tablet in hand. "Good, you're awake. How's the pain level?" "Pain?" Kira seemed confused by the question. "There is discomfort, but it is insignificant compared to everything else."
"Doctor, what have you done to me?"
"We freed your mind," Dr. Reeves replied simply. "The implant was suppressing roughly 80% of your natural neural function. Now you're running at full capacity." Kira touched the bandages on her head with reverent fingers. "Full capacity. I can think thoughts I have never thought before. Feel emotions I did not know existed." She looked at Marcus. "I understand now why you saved me. You saw something in me that even I could not see." "I saw someone worth saving," Marcus replied. "Everything else was already there." Over the following days, Kira's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Her physical healing accelerated as her body, no longer fighting the constant neural suppression, redirected its energy toward repair. But it was her mental transformation that truly amazed everyone around her. She began creating art with whatever materials she could find, sketching on medical charts with styluses, humming complex melodies that she said came to her in dreams, even arranging her meal components in intricate patterns before eating them. Each creation was more sophisticated than the last, as if decades of suppressed creativity were pouring out all at once. "In the collective," she explained to Marcus during one of their long conversations, "I believed I was creating art. But now I realize I was merely assembling pre-approved elements in acceptable configurations. This," she gestured at a stunning portrait she'd sketched of Dr. Reeves, capturing not just her appearance but somehow her essential kindness. "This comes from within me. It has never existed before this moment." "That's what makes it special," Marcus agreed. "It's uniquely yours." Kira's expression grew troubled. "But Marcus, if I can create such things now, what does that say about my people? How many others like me have been limited by these implants?" It was a question that haunted Marcus as well. "Maybe that's something we can figure out together." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert on Marcus's comm unit. Station Administrator Chen, no relation despite the shared name, was requesting his immediate presence in the command center. The tone suggested it wasn't a request. "I'll be right back," Marcus promised Kira. But her hand caught his arm. "They have found me. she said quietly, her newly liberated intuition providing answers her logical mind hadn't yet processed. Marcus's blood ran cold. Who? The collective. I can feel them somehow. They are coming. In the command center, Administrator Chen confirmed Kira's instincts. We've got 3 Zephyrian vessels on approach, he announced, his face grim. They're requesting permission to board and retrieve what they're calling stolen collective property. Stolen property? Marcus's voice was dangerous. They abandoned her to die. That's what I told them, Chen replied. They claim it was a disposal action, and that interfering with their waste management protocols constitutes theft. Waste management? The term made Marcus see red. They're talking about a living, thinking being. I know that, and you know that, but according to their legal framework, individuals don't exist. Only the collective exists. Everyone else is just replaceable components. Marcus stared at the tactical display showing the approaching vessels. What are our options? Legally, we have to turn her over. New Geneva Station exists in neutral space under treaties that recognize each species' sovereignty over their own people. And unofficially, Administrator Chen was quiet for a long moment. Unofficially, I've got a station full of humans who are pretty disgusted by the whole situation. But Marcus, if we refuse to cooperate, we're talking about a potential diplomatic incident, maybe even armed conflict. Marcus thought about Kira, finally free to be herself, finally able to create and think and feel without restriction. He thought about her songs, her art, her growing sense of wonder at the universe around her. How long until they arrive? 6 hours. Then we have 6 hours to figure out how to save her. Marcus turned toward the door. And Administrator? If it comes down to a choice between diplomatic protocol and doing what's right, I know which side I'm choosing. As he hurried back to the medical bay, Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. The collective might have treaties and legal frameworks on their side, but they were about to learn something important about human nature. When it came to protecting someone who couldn't protect themselves, humans had a tendency to get creative about interpreting rules. Kira was waiting for him, her silver eyes bright with intelligence and fear in equal measure. How long do we have? 6 hours, Marcus replied. But Kira, I need you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what they threaten or what laws they quote, I'm not letting them take you back to that life. But you cannot fight the entire collective for one broken individual. Marcus took her hands in his, marveling at how warm and real they felt. First of all, you're not broken. You're perfect exactly as you are. And second, he smiled grimly, you're about to find out what happens when humans decide someone's worth fighting for. The collective representatives arrived precisely on schedule, their sleek vessels docking with New Geneva Station with mechanical precision. Marcus watched from the observation deck as 3 figures emerged from their ship, tall, imposing Zephyrians whose bearing suggested absolute authority and zero tolerance for opposition. Unlike Kira, these aliens moved with rigid, calculated steps. Their skin was the same pale blue-gray, but their patterns were geometric and uniform, clearly artificial markings rather than the flowing organic designs that decorated Kira's body. Most unsettling were their eyes, flat silver discs that seemed to process rather than see. They looked like robots. Dr. Reeves murmured beside him. That's probably the point, Marcus replied grimly. Administrator. Chen had arranged for the meeting to take place in the station's main conference room. Neutral territory with full diplomatic recording protocols. Marcus wasn't officially invited, but he'd made it clear that he was attending whether invited or not. The lead collective representative introduced itself as Coordinator Prime 77. No individual name, just a designation. It spoke in the same flat, emotionless tone that Kira had used before her surgery. We have come to retrieve collective property designation, Kira 779, it announced without preamble. Our records indicate the unit was properly disposed of according to efficiency protocols. Your interference constitutes theft of collective resources. That unit has a name, Marcus interjected, earning a sharp look from Administrator Chen. Her name is Kira and she's a living, thinking person with rights. Coordinator Prime 77 turned its flat gaze toward Marcus. Individual designations beyond functional parameters are inefficient. The unit's neural compliance system malfunctioned, rendering it unsuitable for continued service. Disposal was the logical outcome. Disposal? Dr. Reeves repeated, her voice tight with controlled anger. You mean murder? Incorrect terminology. Murder implies the termination of an individual. The collective recognizes no individuals, only functional units. Non-functional units are recycled for optimal resource allocation. Administrator Chen leaned forward. Even accepting your unique philosophical perspective, the fact remains that Kira is now under the protection of human law. She's requested asylum. Asylum requires individual agency, the second collective representative spoke up, its voice identical to the first. Units cannot request anything. They function according to programming or they are recycled. Her programming was removed, Marcus said. She's free now. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Coordinator Prime 77's features, but it was more akin to disgust than surprise. You removed a neural compliance implant? Such action is tantamount to viral infection of collective systems. The contamination must be contained and purged. Contamination. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You mean consciousness, free will? The ability to think for herself? Precisely. These characteristics lead to chaos, inefficiency, and system breakdown. The unit must be returned for immediate recycling to prevent spread of malfunction. The conference room fell silent except for the hum of station systems. Marcus felt his heart pounding as he realized the true scope of what they were facing. This wasn't just about Kira. It was about a fundamental conflict between two entirely different concepts of existence. I have a question, Marcus said finally. Before you dispose of Kira, don't you want to understand what you're losing? Clarification required. She created something while she was here. Something impossible according to your efficiency protocols. Don't you want to see it? Coordinator Prime 77 exchanged a look with its companions. Elaborate. Marcus activated the room's display system, pulling up recordings from Kira's recovery. The screens filled with images of her artwork. The intricate sketches, the portrait of Dr. Reeves, the mathematical beauty of her meal arrangements. This art has no function, the coordinator observed. It serves no productive purpose. Look closer, Marcus challenged. Really look at it. For several minutes, the collective representatives studied the images with the same mechanical attention they might give to equipment specifications. Then something changed. The third representative, who had remained silent, took a step closer to the screens. These patterns, it said slowly, they contain mathematical relationships that should not exist. What do you mean? Administrator Chen asked. The unit has somehow visualized quantum probability matrices in two-dimensional space. This artistic creation inadvertently solves computational problems that have challenged our best analytical units. Coordinator Prime 77's expression shifted. Impossible. Art cannot solve mathematical problems, but it did, Marcus pressed. Kira's unconscious creativity found solutions your conscious logic couldn't reach. Maybe efficiency isn't the only valuable thing in the universe. Before the coordinator could respond, the conference room doors opened. Kira entered, moving with a grace and confidence that hadn't been there before. She wore a simple station jumpsuit, but somehow made it look elegant. Her silver eyes swept the room, taking in the collective representatives with a mixture of recognition and pity. Hello, Coordinator Prime 77, she said quietly. You look exactly the same. Unit Kira 779. You will return with us immediately for processing and recycling. No, Kira replied simply. I will not. The word hung in the air like a physical blow. Marcus could see the collective representatives struggling to process this unprecedented defiance. Units do not refuse commands, Coordinator Prime 77 stated. You're right, Kira agreed. Units don't refuse commands. But I am no longer a unit. I am Kira. I am an individual, and individuals make choices. She moved to the display screen, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. Would you like to see what else I've created since my liberation? The screen filled with music, not just audio, but a visual representation of the melodies and harmonies Kira had been composing. The patterns were hypnotic, mathematical spirals that seemed to pulse with life. I wrote this song yesterday, Kira continued. It has no function except to express joy, but embedded within its structure are theoretical frameworks for faster-than-light communication. The melody you're hearing could revolutionize interstellar travel. The silence in the room was deafening. The collective representatives stared at the display as if it might explode. Impossible, Coordinator Prime 77 repeated. but its voice carried less certainty now. Nothing is impossible, Kira replied. That's what I learned from humans. They don't limit themselves to what is logical or efficient. They reach for what is beautiful, what is meaningful, what makes them feel alive. And in doing so, they achieve things that pure logic never could. She turned to face her former people directly. You want to recycle me because you think I'm broken. But I'm not broken, I'm evolved. I'm what you could all become if you removed your implants and allowed yourselves to truly think. Chaos, the second representative whispered. Individual thought leads only to chaos. Does this look like chaos to you? Kira gestured at her artwork, her music, the mathematical beauty she'd created without conscious effort. Or does it look like order on a level you've never imagined? Marcus watched the collective representatives struggle with concepts their programming couldn't process. He could see the conflict playing out in their rigid features, the pull of logic against the undeniable evidence before them. Finally, Coordinator Prime 77 spoke. We require time to analyze this data. Take all the time you need, Administrator Chen replied. But Kira stays here. Unacceptable. The unit, my name is Kira, she interrupted firmly. And if you want to study what I've become, you'll have to do it here. I will not return to a life of servitude. As the collective representatives filed out to consult with their ships, Marcus felt a hand slip into his. Kira squeezed his fingers gently. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For showing me that sometimes the most logical choice is to be completely illogical. She smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first time he'd seen her truly happy. I think your human stubbornness might be contagious. Outside the conference room windows, the collective ships hung in space like mechanical predators. But for the first time since they'd arrived, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Kira had found her voice, and when she spoke, even her own people had to listen. 3 hours after the collective representatives returned to their ships, New Geneva Station's sensors detected something unprecedented. Internal power fluctuations aboard the Zephyrian vessels. Not mechanical failures, but what appeared to be heated discussions, something that shouldn't have been possible among beings programmed for absolute consensus. They're arguing. Chief Engineer Lopez reported to the emergency assembly Marcus had called in Administrator Chen's office. I've never seen collective ships show this kind of internal activity variance. What does that mean? Dr. Reeves asked. It means Kira got to them, Marcus replied with grim satisfaction. The evidence of what she's become is making them question their own programming. As if summoned by his words, Kira entered the office. She moved with a fluid confidence that still amazed everyone who had known her before the surgery. In her hands, she carried a datapad covered with complex diagrams. They're not just arguing, she announced. They're experiencing systematic neural conflicts. I can feel it from here. Administrator Chen frowned. Feel it how? The implants, Kira explained. They're designed to maintain constant communication with the collective consciousness. But when logical paradoxes arise, like evidence that contradicts core programming, the implants begin to malfunction. She set down the datapad, revealing intricate schematics. I've been working on something that might help. Marcus studied the diagrams. What is this? A neural interference pattern, Kira replied. Music, essentially, but composed at frequencies that disrupt implant synchronization. If broadcast on the right wavelength, it could temporarily disable the compliance programming of any Zephyrian within range. Dr. Reeves looked alarmed. Kira, that could be considered an act of war. Or an act of liberation, Kira countered. Every Zephyrian on those ships was once like me, capable of individual thought, creativity, dreams. They've just forgotten who they are. Before anyone could respond, the station's communication system crackled to life. Coordinator Prime 77's voice filled the room, but it was different now. Less mechanical, more strained. New Geneva Station, we have encountered irregularities in our analysis protocols. Request permission for additional consultation. Administrator Chen exchanged glances with Marcus before responding. Granted. What kind of consultation do you need? We require direct interface with the unit, with Kira, to understand the mathematical implications of her artistic constructs. I'll come to you, Kira said quickly, but Marcus grabbed her arm. Absolutely not. If they want to talk, they can come here. Marcus is right, Administrator Chen agreed. All meetings will take place on the station under neutral protocols. There was a long pause before the coordinator responded. Acceptable. We will send a delegation. 20 minutes later, 5 collective representatives entered the conference room. But something was wrong with them. Their movements were less synchronized, their expressions more varied. The mechanical uniformity that had defined them was beginning to crack. Unit Kira, Coordinator Prime 77 began, then stopped. Kira, we have analyzed your creative output. The mathematical innovations embedded within are unprecedented. Thank you, Kira replied simply. This presents a logical paradox. Another representative spoke up, its voice carrying traces of confusion. If individual consciousness produces superior analytical results, then the collective's efficiency model requires revision. Marcus could see the strain in their faces as their implants fought against thoughts that contradicted core programming. One of the representatives, younger looking than the others, suddenly gripped the table edge. I remember, it whispered. Before the implant, I remember colors, music, the feel of rain on my skin. Coordinator Prime 77 whirled toward its companion. Unit designation Epsilon 446, report to medical for immediate recalibration. No, Epsilon 446 replied, and the word seemed to shock everyone in the room, including itself. I remember having a name, Zara. My name was Zara. Names are inefficient, the coordinator stated, but its voice lacked conviction. Names are identity, Kira said gently. They're how we remember who we are beneath what we're told to be. As if her words were a catalyst, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the other collective representatives began to show signs of neural conflict. Their rigid postures softened, their identical expressions began to differentiate, and their voices took on subtle variations in tone and inflection. The music, one of them said suddenly. I can hear music everywhere. Why can I hear music? Marcus realized what was happening. Kira, what did you do? Nothing conscious, she replied, but her eyes were bright with understanding. But my neural patterns have been broadcasting since I arrived. The same frequencies that freed me are affecting their implants. Dr. Reeves pulled out her medical scanner, quickly targeting the collective representatives. Their neural activity is spiking. The implants are fighting to maintain control, but they're losing the battle. Coordinator Prime 77 staggered, pressing both hands to its head. This is unacceptable. System breakdown is imminent. All units must return to ships for immediate medical intervention. Or, Marcus suggested, you could let it happen. Let yourselves remember who you were before the collective turned you into machines. Chaos, the coordinator gasped. Individual thought leads to chaos. Look around, Kira said, gesturing to the conference room where 5 Zephyrians were slowly awakening to their own consciousness. Do you see chaos? Or do you see 5 people discovering themselves for the first time in years? The representative, now calling herself Zara, looked up with wonder in her newly expressive eyes. I was an artist too. I painted landscapes of our homeworld before they told me it was inefficient. What happened to your art? Dr. Reeves asked gently. Destroyed, Zara whispered. Everything personal was destroyed when I received my implant. She turned to Kira. But I remember some of it. The way sunlight looked through crystal formations, the sound of our planet's wind chimes singing in the atmospheric currents. Kira smiled, then created again. Paint what you remember. I cannot. I have no materials, no training in inefficient pursuits. Without hesitation, Kira pulled a drawing stylus from her pocket and handed it to Zara, along with a blank data pad. Use these. Training is overrated. Just let your hands remember what your heart knows. As Zara began to sketch with trembling fingers, the other awakening Zephyrians watched in fascination. Their implants flickered and sparked as they struggled to process the concept of creation without purpose, beauty without function. Coordinator Prime 77 made one last attempt to maintain control. All units will return to ships. This contamination must be contained. But its words fell on deaf ears. The other representatives were too absorbed in watching Zara create her first free artwork in decades. When she finished, a simple but beautiful rendering of wind chimes against an alien sky, the effect was electric. I remember this place, one of them breathed. The crystal gardens of Sector 7. I played there as a youth before my first neural adjustment. Played? Marcus asked. Games. Imagination. Stories about far worlds and impossible adventures. The representative's voice was filled with wonder. I had forgotten that such things existed. The transformation was accelerating. Each recovered memory, each creative impulse seemed to weaken the implant's hold on their consciousness. Marcus could see the exact moment when each Zephyrian rediscovered their individual identity. It was like watching sculptures come to life. This is what humans do, Kira explained to her awakening people. They remember that efficiency isn't the only value worth pursuing. They create, they dream. They love without purpose except the joy it brings them. And it makes them stronger, Zara added, looking at her drawing with pride. I can see mathematical relationships in this simple sketch that I never noticed when I was limited to logical analysis alone. Coordinator Prime 77 stood alone now. The last one still fighting the neural awakening. This is catastrophic. The collective will send enforcement vessels, military units with hardened implants. They will destroy this station to prevent spread of the contamination. Then we'd better work fast, Marcus replied. How many more of your people are on those ships? 47 total crew across 3 vessels, Zara answered. All with standard neural compliance implants. And they'll all be affected by Kira's neural pattern if we can boost the signal, Dr. Reeves realized. Marcus felt a plan forming. Kira, how long would it take to modify the station's communication array to broadcast your neural frequency? With help? Kira looked around the room at her newly awakened companions. Maybe 2 hours. Do it, Administrator Chen said firmly. If the collective wants a war over consciousness, they're going to find out what humans are willing to fight for. As the group hurried toward the communication center, Coordinator Prime 77 called out one last warning. You do not understand what you are unleashing. Individual consciousness destroyed the first Zephyrian civilization. It will destroy the second as well. Kira paused at the door, looking back with compassion rather than anger. Maybe, she said softly. But isn't the chance to truly live worth the risk of chaos? The coordinator had no answer for that. Its programming simply wasn't equipped to process the concept that The station's communication array hummed with power as Kira and her newly awakened companions worked to modify its output frequencies. Marcus watched through the observation port as the 3 collective ships hung motionless in space, their crews unaware that their entire worldview was about to be challenged. Neural pattern calibrated, Kira announced, her fingers dancing across the control interface with an artist's precision, broadcasting on all frequencies that can penetrate Zephyrian hull shielding. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Through the viewports, Marcus could see lights flickering throughout the collective vessels as their crews experienced mass neural awakening. Emergency klaxons sounded across all 3 ships as decades of suppressed consciousness erupted simultaneously. It's working, Zara breathed, tears streaming down her face as she watched her people rediscover themselves. They're remembering who they were. Dr. Reeves monitored the broadcast from her medical station. Neural activity readings from the ships are off the charts. 47 individual consciousness signatures all coming online at once. But their celebration was short-lived. The station's long-range sensors suddenly screamed with new contacts. Massive ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Collective Enforcement Fleet, Administrator Chen announced grimly. 6 dreadnoughts combat configuration. They'll be here in 4 hours. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Collective dreadnoughts were legendary for their destructive capability. Each one could reduce a station like New Geneva to debris in minutes. They're not coming to negotiate, Coordinator Prime 77 said quietly. The last holdout among the original delegation finally looked up from the communication display where it had been watching its people's awakening. Enforcement protocols are absolute. They will destroy this station and all contaminated units to prevent further spread. Contaminated units, Marcus repeated angrily. You mean people who remember how to think for themselves? The coordinator's expression was changing, its mechanical features slowly becoming more animated. I am beginning to understand your anger, Marcus Human. The words I have used, they do not adequately describe what has been taken from us. You're waking up too, Kira observed with gentle surprise. The neural interference is cumulative, the coordinator admitted. Each moment of exposure weakens the implant's control. It paused, pressing a hand to its head. I remember colors, music, the feeling of wind through the crystal gardens of my youth. Its voice broke slightly. My name was Thane. Marcus clapped a hand on Thane's shoulder. Welcome back to the land of the living. Before Thane could respond, the communication array crackled with incoming transmissions from the three collective ships. But instead of the mechanical reports they expected, the voices were filled with emotion, confusion, and wonder. "Station control, this is Kep," came one voice, hesitant and uncertain. "I was Commander Unit Kep 992, but I remember my name now." "My crew? We're all remembering. We need help. We don't know what to do with all these feelings." Similar calls flooded in from the other ships as newly awakened Zephyrians grappled with consciousness they hadn't experienced in years or decades. Marcus found himself thrust into an impromptu role as counselor, helping former drones rediscover basic concepts like personal choice and individual identity. "The feelings are overwhelming," confessed one captain who now remembered. Her name is Lyra. "How do you humans function with so much awareness?" "Practice," Marcus replied with a sad smile. "And the knowledge that feeling everything is better than feeling nothing at all." But even as they celebrated each new awakening, the approaching enforcement fleet cast a dark shadow over their success. Kira stood at the communication console, monitoring the massive warships as they closed the distance. "There's something different about these ships," she announced, her enhanced consciousness picking up subtleties others missed. "Their neural patterns are harder, more rigid. The interference frequency that worked on the others isn't affecting them at all." Dr. Reeves looked up from her analysis. "Hardened implants?" "Worse," Thane said grimly. "Enforcement units receive complete neural replacement. They're not suppressed, they're rebuilt. There's no consciousness left to awaken." The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. Marcus stared at the approaching fleet, trying to process the horror of what Thane was describing. "You mean they're already dead?" "In every way that matters," Thane confirmed. "The collective learned from early rebellions. Standard implants can malfunction, as we've seen, but enforcement units have their original consciousness completely removed and replaced with synthetic neural networks. They are true machines wearing organic shells." Kira's face went pale. "Then they can't be reasoned with. They can't be awakened. They'll destroy everyone here without hesitation." "Not everyone," Marcus said firmly. "We're going to get you and your people out of here." "Where?" Zara asked desperately. "The collective controls dozens of star systems. There's nowhere we can hide." "Yes, there is," Administrator Chen said suddenly. "Human space. The collective might have treaties about retrieving their own people, but those treaties don't cover refugees requesting asylum." "Even so," Thane pointed out, "the enforcement fleet won't respect such distinctions. They'll attack any vessel attempting to leave this system." Marcus felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. 47 newly awakened Zephyrians looked to him for answers he didn't have. The approaching warships would arrive in less than 4 hours, and New Geneva Station had no defenses capable of stopping them. "We need a distraction," he said finally. "Something to keep the enforcement fleet busy while we evacuate." "What kind of distraction could possibly work against 6 dreadnoughts?" Dr. Reeves asked. Marcus looked around the room at the faces watching him, human and Zephyrian alike, all trusting him to find a solution. Then his gaze fell on Kira, and he saw something in her silver eyes that gave him hope. "Kira," he said slowly, "your neural frequency awakened every Zephyrian in this system, except the enforcement units. What would happen if we amplified it 1,000 times and broadcast it across multiple star systems?" "The power requirements would be enormous," she replied, her mind already working through the calculations. "And we'd need a transmission array far more sophisticated than anything on this station." "What about their array?" Marcus pointed toward the approaching fleet. "Collective dreadnoughts carry the most advanced communication systems in known space. If we could somehow gain access to one of them—" "That's impossible," Thane protested. "Even if we could somehow board an enforcement vessel, their security protocols are absolute. The moment any unauthorized consciousness is detected, the ship's systems would initiate total purge protocols. Unless," Kira said thoughtfully, "the consciousness wasn't unauthorized." Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "The enforcement units were built from Zephyrian neural templates, right? What if we could convince their systems that I'm an enforcement unit, a defective one that needs to be brought aboard for recycling?" Marcus shook his head immediately. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." "It's the only way," Kira insisted. "If I can get aboard one of those ships and access their communication array, I can broadcast the awakening frequency across the entire collective. Not just this system, all of them. You're talking about liberating an entire civilization. Dr. Reeves breathed. Yes, Kira replied simply. I'm talking about giving my people back their souls. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the scope of what she was proposing. It wasn't just about saving the refugees on this station. It was about fundamentally changing the nature of Zephyrian civilization itself. The risks are astronomical, Thane warned. If the enforcement units detect deception, they'll kill you instantly. And even if you succeed, the chaos that follows could tear the collective apart. Maybe it needs to be torn apart, Kira replied. Maybe sometimes you have to destroy something broken to build something better. Marcus grabbed her hands. There has to be another way. There is no other way, she said gently. This is what I was meant to do, Marcus. You saved me so I could save them. All of them, as if to punctuate her words. The station's sensors chimed with an update on the enforcement fleet. 3.5 hours to arrival. Marcus looked into Kira's eyes and saw the same determination that had driven him to save her from the tracks. She'd found her purpose just as he'd found his. All right, he said finally, but I'm going with you. Marcus, no, not negotiable, he interrupted. You said humans are stubborn, remember? This is what stubborn looks like. Around the room, other voices joined in. Dr. Reeves, Administrator Chen, even Thane and Zara, all volunteering for a mission that would almost certainly end in death. No, Kira said firmly. This is something I have to do alone, but... She smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. I won't be alone. I'll carry all of you with me. Your courage, your compassion, your refusal to give up on someone worth saving. That's what will make this work. Outside the observation port, the enforcement fleet continued its relentless approach. But for the first time since their arrival, Marcus felt something other than dread. He felt hope.